How's it going, internets? I hope you're having a lovely day. It's that time again. It's time to get into some animation. It's time to get that imagination all revved up. It's time to get into some creativity, and it's time to get inspired. And today's inspiration comes from Albert Uderzo. And if you're not familiar with his work, check right over here. He's probably most well known for being one of the creators or creative minds behind Asterix and Obelisk. And if you're not familiar with them, they're a very well-known kind of European Gaul fantasy world cartoony duo. I love it. I love the style. I love the world. I love the stories behind it. And this is a great one too, because this is he came back after being retired for a few years, and did a couple of little illustrations for Charlie Hebdo. And if you're not familiar with that, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but definitely check that out, especially if you're a creative person, because I think it's really an important thing to be aware of and think about for sure. And this is just the other one that he did for that, and I thought that was a really great thing for him to do. Again, just a couple more little clips into the Asterix, and this is Cleopatra. But he's got great coloring, great layout. I really like his choice of bringing realism with a cartoon feel to it. I feel like he lends a little more towards the realistic side than a lot of other cartoons, and I really like that. But you can also tell, the big noses and the kind of bigger hands and all that stuff. So you get that still that cartoon feel to it, but definitely a little bit different take than your typical like cat and mouse, Tom and Jerry kind of feel. A little more realism in there. So definitely check out more from him. I will have a description and more about Asterix in the description below if you guys want to check that out. But I did want to share one quote from him with you guys too, and that was, "This business you have to love with all your heart, otherwise you should leave it." And it's probably a little harsh, but I think that's completely true. There's a lot of days where it's lonely doing illustration and animation work from the time you wake up till almost the time you go to bed. And if you don't love it, and if it's not something that you're passionate about doing, as soon as your buddy wants to go out and go get drinks, or as soon as your friend wants to come over and go play basketball, or as soon as there's a great movie that you haven't seen that you want to go see, sometimes you got to say no to that kind of stuff. Or even just some days spending hours with your family, or hanging out playing a board game, or any of that kind of stuff. It tends to be, if it's really something that you want to do and you want to get good at, you have to make sacrifices. And if you're not willing to do that, there's tons of other jobs out there. I know personally, in my past, I've had worked at a few places, and it was tough work. And I'm not saying that this is the same level of work, but there's this distinct number of hours that you worked. You worked your 9 to 5, or you worked your 3 to 11, or whatever that shift was, and then you went home, and then for the rest of that time you weren't working. But in a creative field, I feel like you're not really hitting that stocking shelves level of work where it's physically always tiring like that. But I think if you really get to that next level, you're perpetually always working, because you're thinking, oh, could I get an idea off of that? Or that's an interesting pose that guy did. Or how did their lips move when they were saying that sentence? That was a really interesting way, or facial expression that they did. Or the way that the shadow from a tree falls on the ground. Or you're always looking to see how you can incorporate the world that you're living into your work. So even when you're not sitting down at the table drawing, and this goes for any medium, I'm sure. I've done a little bit of music stuff in my past, and you always have to listen with kind of an ear of, oh, that's an interesting hook. I wonder how I could use something similar to that and put that in the middle of a song or something too. So all that comes back to This is a business you have to love with all your heart, otherwise you should leave it. And it's not about being harsh, it's about the reality of if you want to be successful in it, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, and most people aren't willing to do that. So swallow it hard and get out there and work some more. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into some animation. This is the Moom version 3 rig. It's an older version of the Moom rig, and as you can see, the nice thing about this one is you can separate the different parts of the body. So I think for today's video, we're just going to do the lower half. And there's a couple rigs that are like that. I think the Lime rig was kind of like this, and Animation Mentor has one, and I think most of the animation schools have a bipedal, just kind of hips rig. But we're going to go ahead and use that one for today. And again, if you want to turn the rest of it off, just grab down here and you can turn the visibility on if you want to do the rest. But I think we're just going to focus on doing that. That way we can kind of tighten up, and maybe it won't be such... we've been doing almost an hour and a half almost every day for the last few days. So this one, hopefully, if our idea isn't too crazy, shouldn't be as long, so probably closer to the 45-minute mark than the hour and 20-minute mark. But if you're not familiar with what we're doing here, we give ourselves 48 frames, 2 seconds of animation. I go off and I find a rig that I've never used before that's a free resource for you guys to play around with. And we kind of go from there. A little bit of over the shoulder, hang out with me while I animate. A little bit of instruction or guidance or talking through the process. And overall, the main really goal of these videos is to encourage you guys to go off and create your own stuff and really inspire you, whether it's because something we talked about or we looked at, or a quote that I found, or any of that kind of stuff stuck with you, and it makes you want to try something different, or because you disagree with it and you want to prove that your idea is better, or for whatever reason you still got inspired through disagreement, which sometimes is more inspiring, I think. Either way, and whichever it goes, definitely share back down below. If you guys created something, I want to give you some encouragement, or if you need an extra set of eyes because you're just stuck and you can't figure out why something's not working, maybe an extra set of eyes will help you as well. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into our animation for today. And we're going to set our frame range from 0 to 48. We are using Autodesk Maya 2014 today. And we're going to be continuing on with Jumpvember. We only have a few more days for Jumpvember, which is a jump animation every day for the month of November. And today will be no different. We'll be doing another jump. And I think today we're going to do a backwards jump. And yeah. I think we'll kick the legs out and try and do kind of a ballerina landing type pose. So, see how that works. That's the main goal for today. And I think we're actually going to have a couple little steps towards the edge, then jump up and land kind of a, not a plie, but sort of a mix of the feet landing a little bit more horizontally, or sticking out toward camera more than usual. So, that being said, let's go ahead and try and get a little more interesting pose here. Push that foot forward and this one back. And actually, what I'll do is rotate towards that a little bit more. Bring it down a bit. And let's splay the feet out a little bit more. And I think I want to do more of a straight on camera than a side to side. But we'll have to see which one will look better. Okay. So let's go ahead and set everything there. We'll go ahead and save our file here, and let's go 12 frames from that. And I'll push that foot back there. Just going to do a little step. And those hips over here. To frame 6, raise that up, and I'll drag it down, and rotate the hips this way, and dip them down here, so I go here. Haven't done a walk in a little while, so this is kind of fun to be able to do some steps. Been doing walk a day for almost a year and a half now, at least in some form, or I did just some sort of animated walk every day. And now we're doing this jump Vember, so it's definitely a different setup, so it's nice to get back in and at least do one step here. Okay, so this was just kind of building up that anticipation a little bit more, and now let's go ahead and make sure we set everything there at 14. And let's do a little bit of anticipation here, rotate that forward, we'll go a little bit more there. Set that, set that, set that. And again, this isn't our perfect timing right now, we're just getting a rough pass in on everything, and then we'll go from there. And let's go to 25. Push everything over. Actually, let's go ahead and go to 30. 25. Let's go ahead and raise that up. Let's go up with the feet. Yeah, let's go out as well. Rotate that foot out there. So I can go down a little bit. Each side, it feels a little fast, so maybe we'll give ourselves one more frame here and one more frame there. Let's watch that again. Yes, I do want that to go back and zero out there. And let's look at the hips here. And give me another 2 frames in between there. Set that, give me about another 2 frames there as well. Oh. In between there. 1, 2, okay. So let's look at it now, so we can get that hold down. Blend those two a little bit more if we can. And maybe another 2 frames here. About another 3 frames of hold here as well. 1, 2, 3. Let's look at it now. planted to about 33. I think we could probably lift this one up at 31. And let's see, let's do ball roll here. Maybe a little less straight there. And maybe we'll do a little ball here. Okay, and let's give me one more frame here. Just feels like that leg's going a little too fast. That feels a little better. And let's go ahead and have that land at about 40. But we can have it just do the toe here. Let's see, it's the heel. Nail. Okay, I'm gonna have a nail there. Let's delete this because I just did too much there. So let's put that nail in there. Which is it just means it's on the toe. Want it to hit a little bit harder. Do a little bit more there. And let's add a little more weight to it. And this one we can go up higher. And let's delay that one frame because I don't want both feet to hit there. And maybe I'll go everything one frame sooner here. Let's see. Then I'll go down back. just so there's a little bit of... Okay, I've got to switch up the timing a little bit here. So... let's give me an extra frame on both sides of that one. And an extra frame here, extra frame here, an extra couple of frames there. That should bring me to about 70. Let's look at the timing now. Okay, now let's look at everything and try to even it, or clean it up a little bit. This could be a little bit higher, add a little more weight there. Frame sooner. Something like that. It's probably a little better. Let's see. Let's go and bring that one frame sooner. Let's look at the translate Z here. Keep that, delete that one. Push it forward a little bit more here. Kind of overshoot that a little bit. Just a little bit, that's probably too much. It's definitely too much, but... give me like 2 frames to get here. One. Needs to be a little bit higher here. Over a little bit more. Just want to try and polish up that arc a little bit more. Up a little bit more. Forward a little bit. Stays up for a little too long, I think. Let's look at it now. That feels better. Okay, obviously that translate Z kind of didn't work for me there, so let's go ahead and delete that. Hold it for a little bit longer. let's do a little roll up on the balls of the feet here. So we got that held. Hold it there. A little bit there. Zero it out there. And a little teeny bit here. And then give me about 6 more frames there. Let's roll that out. Let's see. Okay, we want to zero that. And we do want it to stay planted there. And we can maybe delay about 1 more frame. We started a frame earlier. Let's look at it now. Zero them out there. And too much, so let's just tone it down there. I just want a little bit of that. Maybe let it go a little bit longer. Set down a little bit more. And 1 frame sooner and a little bit less. Okay, and let's look at this guy. And give me a few more frames for that. So I can really slow that down. Let's look at it now. And let's go translate Y's here. That should be a little bit better. Now let's look at translate Z here. So we can just clean that up a little bit more. That feels a little better. Let's go ahead and save our file. Let's do a little more. I feel like the ending's working pretty good, but we gotta do a little a slip inch. Just on this foot. Let's go translate Y on this foot. Let's go bring up, rotate it down, drag toe down a little bit. Let's try to smooth out these curves a little more. Let's go translate X there. Let's keep that. Let's keep it out a little bit further, longer rather. And we'll have it get in a little bit more. And let's look at that toe here. It's dragging. Let's keep it going a little bit more. Drag. Go and lift it up here. Lift it up there, and then slap it down. Let's see if that will loosen up that. Let's do a little bit of toe drag there. Keep that going. Let's delete that one. And let's get a plant for at least 2 frames. So we really get that contact there. Maybe break that a little bit more. Maybe a little bit on this last one. Let's see. Just so it breaks up that movement a little bit more too. And just a tiny, tiny bit. We don't need a lot. Okay. And let's look at the other foot here. Go ahead and save our file where we're at it. While we're at it, let's look at the our spacing's still pretty good on there. So we get a little bit of a slow out, and a slow in. Now this guy kind of pops out a little bit more, but that's okay. Actually, this frame could probably be a little bit different. Probably gonna translate Y here. Translate Z. Just want to try and clean that up. So maybe we'll do this. It's not as clean. Silhouette's not as clean there, so I'm glad to sacrifice a little bit of our spacing for a little more clean silhouette. Anyway, let's take everything here after this frame. Let's delay it one frame just so the timing isn't exactly the same. And let's look at that heel. Let's keep it at 0 for a little bit longer. little bit of rotate Y in there. It keeps it a little bit from feeling too much like it's in flat space. Gives a little more element to that 3D space there. And did we look at breaking this toe before? Let's go and save our file here. Let's look at the toe control. I don't think we did anything with it. Let's go ahead. Drag it back there. We can lift it up there. Maybe one more frame. A little less. And we'll just do less of it. I just want to loosen that foot up a little bit more, the toe up. Okay, I feel like everything's kind of working. I just want to tweak the timing a little bit at the beginning. Let's go translate Z here. It just locks off Z, and I want it to go a little bit more. And get a little bit of that movement back so it doesn't fully lock off there. And just keep a little bit more than a flat locked in arc. And so we rotate X, make sure that that doesn't really lock off too much there. And now let's kind of go something like this. Now, the only problem here is that first pose doesn't feel as on, even though it feels right here. So for a side view, kind of want to tweak it a little bit. Take the translate X here. Let's let's keep our side view, but let's get a little bit of a better pose here. Let's take this foot. Hips right down, right down. Rotate a little bit this way. Let's see. Okay, maybe we'll add an extra stutter step there. So we'll keep this here till about 8. Actually, let's keep it there till about 12. Let's see. Just because that original first pose wasn't feeling so good from like a side view. So let's see. Hold that till about just so that knee's not so shut, locked off in the up position. Let's see. Just don't want that knee to pop so much. Maybe we could even go. I wonder if we could do a heel here, a little bit of a heel there, just to get that bend in the knee. That might work a little more. And we'll do a little bit of toe drag there. Lift it up, and do 2 frames, bring that down. And let's look at the toe here. And do a little bit of drag there, still in that toe. So let's see. Zero it out. A little bit more. It's way too much overshoot on that toe. Just a little bit so it can settle. All that just to adjust that first pose. But I think it makes it a little bit stronger and a little more intriguing. We switch the timing up of that step, breaks up that anticipation a little bit more. Okay, let's just make sure our posing still feels pretty good throughout. Not giving any big pops or anything there. We'll go a little more of an angle so we get a little more spacing in there. So let's see. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Again, just want to look at this. We don't want those feeling like they're tangenting, like they're touching each other. So let's look at it again. A little more side view. And maybe we'll take the translate Z on this foot, just ever so slightly take it back just a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's look at the transition from there to there. Alright, I feel like that works pretty well. So let's take a look back at where we started. Let's go ahead and hide that, and turn our curves off so we can really see it. Save our file one more time. And we're looking at Albert Uderzo from Asterix and Obelix fame. And he said, this business you have to love with all your heart, otherwise you should leave it. And I think that goes for anything creative that you do, that you really want to kind of make a career of rather than just have as a hobby, is that you have to love it with all your heart. Otherwise, when people rip up your work, you get defeated and you get depressed and you'll stop and that's it. Or you're going to put other things in front of it and you're never going to be able to hit that level that you need to hit of concentration and focus and drive and passion and all of that. So, a little bit of a tough one, but inspirational that other people are feeling those same things, you know, that you have to put all your whole heart into stuff. So yeah, I love you guys lots. Thanks for all the likes and subscribes. You guys are amazing. If you're watching this, you are the creative future, and I completely and utterly believe in you. So keep going each and every day. I know you can do it. And I think that'll do it for today. We're rounding out, I think, the last week here on Jumpvember. So hopefully you liked going into these jump animations with me. And if you're just watching this one for the first one, feel free to check pretty much the last month's worth of uploads have been jump animations. So definitely check those out. And that being said, we'll see you for some more animation tomorrow.